Welcome, maybe welcome again, or maybe welcome for the first time in this series of how I produced, mixed and mastered the soundtrack for Deep Rock Galactic. If you feel like supporting me because I'm doing this on my own, this is not something that Ghost Ship has paid me to do or anything. This is something I do in my spare time. There is a link in the description to some sound packs that I have for sale on the Epic Marketplace. So if you're creating computer games and using the Unreal Engine, you can use my awesome sound packs. And also there's a link to Buy Me a Pizza, which is just plain old donations. And I'll be super grateful if you like and subscribe as well. So first things first, this is a track from Volume 2. And when we got to Volume 2, I had a pretty different workflow. First of all, I had been through Volume 1, which contained many tracks, so I had gotten some good workflows up and running. And Sophus as well. He switched from using his iPad for making the core composing and started using a computer as well. And that made things easier when he was handing over his projects to me. First of all, I'm using more of the raw audio files that Sophus delivered, but I also moved away from using virtual instruments. I started using real hardware instruments a lot more during Volume 2, and it was just so much fun. When I was using software instruments, I was playing them and recording the output straight away, like you would on a normal hardware synthesizer. So you won't see that many automation lanes going up and down and modulating different synthesizer parameters, because I was either doing it, if I was using virtual instruments, I was doing it by mouse or a controller on a keyboard that was manipulating the sound in the computer, or I was just doing it by hand on real hardware synthesizers. So it was a different approach, and I think it was a lot more fun to do, and I also think the results are better. And in this specific track, I tried to nail the sound of a 303, which is an old bassline generator from the late 80s, and it was used a lot in trance music up through the early 90s. And it's a very famous and well-known sound once you hear it. I had to really persuade Mikkel, the game director, that this sound was awesome, which I thought it was and still think it is. And I think it really adds something to the track. Also, on this track, there wasn't a lot of variation going on over time, so I invented a whole new section where I introduced the 303, as I mentioned earlier, and just made up my own drum patterns and everything. So this is probably one of the tracks that I added most to. There have been other tracks where I added a lot of stuff, but this is on the top 3 list, I think. And as I did on the other videos, I will be going through the version that I was handed over from Sophus, the composer, and tell you how I think it could be improved. Then I'll play you the finished version and talk a bit about that, and then go through the finished version track by track and explain things here and there. And I hope you enjoy it. Let's go through it. And the beginning sounds pretty much as the finished version. And the same bass line coming in, or bass sound. A bit too subby and not too much definition in the bass sound, I would say. And the drum beat is cool, but it could use some punch. And 80s identity. I really like that cool sounding voice synthesizer thingy going on there. It really sets the tone for the whole track. A new element added. That cool voice thing again. And this line that's being introduced here needs some special massage and attention, because you almost can't hear it. It's a very drony or ambience-like sound. I'll probably emphasize that a bit more. And the drums as well, they're just too repetitive. We've been hearing the same beat going on and on forever now. Yeah, needs variation. That bass line we've heard a a lot of times now, and there's no variation in sound or anything. Just pretty much it's the same thing. Cool voice line again. Yeah, a new instrument coming in there, but again it needs some emphasis. You almost can't hear it. I'll probably just be skipping to the end of the track now because it's pretty much copy and paste. There isn't really any variation going on or new melodic lines being introduced. And I'll of course be doing something about that. Let's see how I changed it a bit and made it sound not as repetitive and have a more 80s feel and more distinct identity. The beginning is pretty much the same. A new bass sound layered right there. Awesome sound, if you ask me. Yeah, I love it. That's the Minimo, or the Behringer Model D, a Minimo clone hardware synthesizer. Yeah, and these drums are much more banging. That short reverb on the snare really makes it sound like something straight out of a horrible 80s TV series. And the drums are also more emphasized. There's more punch to them. Yeah, and there I emphasized the new melody. The melody was there, but I added a new instrumentation on it. Then a new synthesizer right here that wasn't there before that I added, just to add and build upon the track. Then a break, and then this section that you'll hear in a second or two is something completely new that I added to create variation in the track, and I really enjoy this part of the track. This is like hardcore Kraftwerk vibes, but still with the same bass line and that cool voice thing. I love that deep bass that comes in right now. If we compare it to the old version, it sounds like this. Then back again to my version. And here comes in a TB303 emulation that I added, which is a classic trance instrument from the early 90s. Sounds awesome. Compare it again to the old version. Then back to mine. And that's pretty much it, then it just fades out slowly. So let's go through the whole thing track by track. Start off with the intro sounds. That is just left as Sophus handed it over to me. And that's the only thing that's being played on the track except for the end, but that's the exact same thing. Next track, that was the cool voice sound. That really has a nice 80s flavor to it. Then the next track, also just as Sophus delivered it to me. Next track. Yeah, that's that brooding beginning of the whole track. And that's it. And then the next track, a string synthesizer thingy. Sounds like this in context. And if I mute it and unmute it, subtle, but it does something. Then to the next track, which is one of the pretty hidden melody lines that I augmented a bit, because you couldn't really hear it in the original track. We have a listen to it in the original version. So you can't really, I mean, you can hear it, but it's just a pretty hidden sound. Then my version. So you can actually hear the notes here. Then the next section, a melody line that I added. Sounds very majestic and beautiful in context. Yeah, this is the lovely bass line that I added. And then another track. I really like this techno dancey vibe, and then I have a compressor that ducks the volume. And it's being triggered by a kick drum. It makes everything sound bouncy. This is a synthesizer that I added as well. And as you can hear, I'm doing variation because I'm changing the sound throughout the track. And then next section. Also a synthesizer I added. Yeah, that's also pretty much as Sophus handed it over, and it plays the same melody line as this. Yeah, also pretty much the same thing, a bit of reverb or a bit of chorus added to the sound, but that's it. And left completely untouched. A subtle pad thing going on. And this was one of the lines that was just too hidden before, so I added some distortion to it to make it pop out a bit more, but also to give it some more grit. This is disabled and enabled. Just sounds a bit more grungy. Next track. Yeah, this is the 303 emulation I was talking about that I added. Sounds really cool. And this is the part that I really had to convince Mikkel to add to the track. But I think this is the part that really gives the track its own identity. This is what sets it apart from other tracks. And then another bass line that I added. I really like this sound as well. Some high frequencies added. without, with. The drums that Sophus handed over to me, unchanged. And here's some stuff that I added. That slowly fades in. To spice up the 4 to the floor rhythm. I cut out some high frequencies. And I'm adding some spring reverb to it. Very old school sounding reverb. That's actually, in real life, it's a physical spring that you send audio through. Then it's also sent to another reverb. Another section that I added, which is very basic, just 4 to the floor, and boosted some low frequencies. Just have the whole track banging more in this section. And then Sophus drums. And then the same drum pattern that Sophus made, but I switched out the drum sounds with a different sound. With a sequential circuits drum tracks. Very 80s sounding drum machine. Boosted some high end. Very snappy sounding. And I copied and altered Sophus drum pattern a tiny bit and then put a new sound on it, so you can hear that there's a bit of variation going on. And then the snare sound, where I swapped out the sound with, again, sequential circuit drum track snare. And it gives you that 80s sound right there. Some snare reverb on it, muted. And added. And then a hi-hat. This is a 909 hi-hat, which is an early 90s drum machine. Just to go with 303, that was an early 90s rave techno machine. You combine the two, then adding the kick drum, another kick drum, and snare. If you just play these couple of tracks alone, I think this is almost a new track in itself. And combined. And I'm really happy with how this whole thing that I added to the track turned out. It really colors the track in a certain way and gives it an early 90s identity, and we always try to have each track having its own thing going on. Yeah, and I really like this sound as well. Sounds evil and old school. So that was pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, if you want to support me, then like and subscribe. And also, again, remember that I'm doing this in my spare time and it's not something that is being financially supported by Ghost Ship Games. So if you feel like supporting me, then go ahead and click the link in the description and buy some cool sound packs for Unreal Engine. And of course, there's always the Buy Me a Pizza link as well, where it's just plain old donations. And please let me know how I could improve this video, or if there's any specific subject that you would like to hear more about, then just write in the comments section. Thanks and have a great day.